So that brings us to our second match of the day. It's going to be SilverName taking on Viper in this one. We saw both of these players play yesterday. Both of them picked up wins, and both of them have very different lineups. I think if you'd have showed me their lineups actually side by side, I would have gotten wrong who brought what. Because to this week, SilverName has brought some pretty standard-looking decks, which I think are solid and good, and Viper has brought a pretty much full aggressive lineup to this one, as we now get a look at the pick and ban phase of this one, where you get to shield one of your decks from being banned away. That's what that Divine Shield over where the class means. And then you get to ban away one of your opposing classes, where you then play a best-of-3 conquest match from there. So talk to me about these decks and what you're thinking about them.
I'm personally really happy just to see someone going with a super aggressive lineup in this format. It's quite unique in terms of the lineups in the field to see someone do that. Talking, of course, about Viper, and he's so far been very interested in both of his series so far in protecting that Shaman deck. SilverName, on the other hand, does have kind of a variation of his own. He has a couple of slower decks and a couple of aggressive decks. One of the more aggressive decks in his lineup is the Rogue that we were both big fans of yesterday, Admirable. This is a deck that we both played a decent amount of, you to ridiculous degrees, where Wolf Riders and additional cards like that have got in with Sinister Strikes. But I played a deck very similar to this, just with the addition of Zephyrus the Great in there as well, for some of that extra late-game finishing power when you played your Myriad stable.
Yeah, SilverName says, none of that nonsense, give me the Fairy Dragon on turn 2. It's a pretty straightforward, aggressive deck. With the addition of Hooked Scimitar, this deck got a pretty big, I'd say, power jump in terms of its assault power. Being able to coin Scimitar into Dread Corsair is a major turn 2 that you could look at when you're on coin, as well as just a pretty decent one-drop with Pharaoh Cat, giving you a little bit of extra gas and some chip damage along the way. I feel like that the aggro rogue deck has not been settled on what it'll look like in its final iterations and what the tech choices are, but right now I believe it is a force to be reckoned with, and it will remain so, as it's one of the decks that is untouched by balance changes.
Speaking of a force to be reckoned with, Electra Storm Surge showed that it itself was a force to be reckoned with yesterday, as it came off the top as the only out for Viper in a situation where he looked completely lost, doubling up a Lava Burst to win the game against RDU. Viper yesterday got off to a 2-0 start against RDU. SilverName also getting off to a much better start this season than last. He picked up a 2-1 win, showing signs that he might be improving on his 5-9 record from last season. I
think with relegations at stake, players are they're going to opt to take it more seriously, and I'm excited about that. You know, you looked at the middle of Season 1 last time. The players who were doing fairly poorly, it seemed like they were reluctant to really do much else. They're like, I'm going to keep trying to do the same thing and see if it works.
Yeah.
With relegations at stake, if you're losing in the middle of the season, you got to figure it out fast, or you're looking at Grandmasters for you coming to an end.
Yeah, I think when that relegation starts to loom and it's staring a few of these players in the face, I think we might just see some serious effort changes going in from what we saw in Season 1, because when these Grandmasters have to face the possibility of profit of...
I'm sorry. That was perfect timing.
All right, so while I finish this, if you guys aren't interested in what I'm saying right now, just rewind to yesterday, and Admirable and I had an argument about how trash that card is, or Pharaoh Cat. We probably would have it again right now, but I'm just going to keep on with what my point was.
Yes.
Which is... when these Grandmasters players are faced with the prospect of having to fall back down into that Masters Tour system to fight their way back up again, I think they'll start to realize just how good they have it as Grandmasters right now, and they will fight and scrap and claw and do everything they can to hold on to that status.
Step number 1 with this deck, take board control. Step number 2, deal face damage.
Also, Generous Mummy sucks.
Yeah, I think for Viper, he's not even close to thinking about that range right now. He is solely on the Edwin sucks plan.
Yeah. Well, no, Edwin, what?
Well, to play against, look at him. It's turn 3 for Viper.
Sure.
He doesn't have ways to fight back against this unless he wants to either overload himself and do nothing, or unless he wants to take 6.
I think take 6 ends up being the plan for Viper.
Perhaps take 6 again.
No.
How do you kill that next turn?
With Thunderhead stuff?
You have Thunderhead Zap.
Mm-hmm.
That's 4.
Oh, you're right. Why did for some reason my brain completely switched off and I thought he was going into 5 next
Well, you
turn.
thought the Generous Mummy was already in play.
Yes! That's what I did.
Yeah, I'm not taking 6. I'm overloading.
Jeez. That is disgusting. disgusting.
Yeah, you
could
saw
see,
the wince from Viper.
Yes, the disgusted look on Viper's face.
Honestly, now you can play Generous
It's
Mummy.
kind of like, you know what? Generous Mummy seems like a thing right now.
It's not that bad. I'm telling you, it's not that bad. Look, in this matchup, Viper has to fight for board, right? That means he has to expend his cards. What does that mean? It means your opponent has less ways to take advantage of Generous Mummy. In slower matchups, their cards are already clunky. Yes, they get accelerated, but they have to check the Mummy along the way. The card, when I first saw it, I said, this card's terrible. You'll never use this. The first time it got played against me, I went, wow, my hand's really cheap. Wow, that thing's going to deal me 10 damage. You remember Arcane Golem? You remember Arcane Golem?
Yes, Arcane Golem did guaranteed damage. You could draw it off the top and it was lethal. That's a completely different scenario.
It's a different scenario, but what I'm telling you is there's a lot of things that aggro decks will do in order to obtain damage. I think taking risks is one of them.
There is a ridiculous level of things that you will do to attain damage.
There's a ridiculous number of things that SilverName will do to attain damage.
Hey, whoa, okay. In the scenario where your opponent literally has 1 mana on the following turn, yes, a 3-mana 5/4 is a good card.
Get wrecked, idiot!
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah, get him!
When did I say it was never good?
You said just now, that card is never good, Admirable, you're an idiot.
Well, the subtext did have the "you're an idiot," as does everything that I say to anyone. But
yeah, the true story of this one is Generous Mummy brought to you by Edwin Van Cleef.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like when you go to a concert and it's headlined by someone really good, and then like the next band comes up and you're like, what is that? Yeah, the Edwin was the good band. Generous Mummy's the follow-up.
Yeah.
They weren't bad, but they weren't good.
It's like,
but you know what? They got the job done.
It's like a festival where you're at like stage 2 and you watch the band that you're really, really interested in watching, and then some guy you've never heard of comes out afterwards. Like, all right, I'll hang around and see what this guy's got.
Oh, I forgot about the Generous Mummy Spirit of the Frog interaction, where your 2s become 1s and they draw more 2s.
Yes, as the Spice Girls famously once said, when 2 become 1.
Talking about bands. That is an issue for SilverName. However, I think that this being an aggro matchup, he's off to the races with damage.
Yes.
And right now, I think it's firmly in his favor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, getting back to sort of serious analysis at this point, like Arcane Golem was fine and playable in outright face decks because it was guaranteed damage. SilverName played a 5/4 in a scenario where it was guaranteed damage because Viper just didn't have the mana to respond to it on the following turn. So if you could play Generous Mummy in a situation where it was always going to deal its 5 as a minimum, yeah, sign me up. Like that would be a playable card in some decks.
Well, it's gotten in for 10 now, and it's still not touched.
Yep.
What do you think of Generous Mummy now? Yeah, get him!
I think, to be generous, it's terrible.
Tell 10! That has been a pyroblast from a Pharaoh cat.
Can we please separate from the results-oriented thinking?
No!
For a okay, fine.
Results are part of what matters.
Yes, but not the whole of what matters.
Not the whole, but it's part of it.
Yeah.
And right now, it's looking like 2-0 Generous Mummy.
Did he win the last game?
Yeah!
Okay,
it got frozen twice and he dominated that game.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It didn't actually end up dealing any damage, but it baited out the
Forced Ray
rare
of Frosts.
Yeah.
You know what it's like to attack a Generous Mummy twice? Not a good feeling.
Share the wealth.
Oof.
Well, he gets to take 0 from it,
Yep.
thanks to the Quicksand Elemental.
Still a big oof, because if he's going to have any hope of winning, he needs to find some way to race, and that Rockfire weapon is his best racing tool if he draws a Doomhammer off the top.
All for naught, because Leroy was the last card.
Yep.
Yep, I think Viper, you know, that's Edwin Van Cleef for you. That card is super powerful, and I'm telling you, Aggro Rogue is here to stay.
Yes. And again, when you play an Edwin Van Cleef and your opponent has to use 3 cards, which all overload him to answer it, yeah, following that up with a 5-4 with a massive downside, like the relevant part of that description is a 5-4. Like just following it up with that is good enough because you know it's just going to start pounding away and dealing damage.
Yeah, and so for Viper in that situation, you could look at it and say, why didn't you just wait for the Thunderhead in order to take care of in that situation? He knows that he's against an aggressive rogue deck.
Yeah,
he knows that every point of damage is going to count. His goal is to try to burn through the Edwin and hope that there's a weak follow-up on the other side from SilverName. That wasn't the case. Got pushed out of the game.
Yeah, and the fact that it was a 2-turn wait with the Thunderhead to be able to deal with it anyway, like he could have just dropped the Thunderhead the turn afterwards and hoped that it had like soft taunt and like it was respected, but not like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're just if your Edwin is in the region of dealing like 18 damage, like you're going to send that in multiple times from SilverName's side of the board. So I think he made the right call in respecting it. Like you said, it's just a kind of roll the dice play where you say, I hope my opponent doesn't have good follow up with this. Like maybe it's just like a dagger up deckhand kind of turn or something like that I can cope with and then rebuild afterwards with the Thunderhead. The fact that it was almost exactly Generous Mummy was about, in that particular situation, was about the best card that he could have had to play.
And with that, we're going to go to a break. Generous Mummy was the perfect card there, in Sottle's words only. When we come back, game number 2 of SilverName versus Viper. Stay tuned.